Get him, get him.
Oh my God!
Calm down. Come here, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here.
Oh! Yeah, dude!
Dude.
6 pounds, 11 ounces. Oh,
2 points. Oh my. Limp! That's what I've been waiting for all day.
that's over 6.
True. And that one's,
Oh, here he goes. Go!
you good?
That's a big fish.
Full hand on tail, yeah, looks sick. Good to go.
Look how broad that thing is.
I wonder if that was the one that followed me in.
Beautiful. Oh my God. Holy God. What a beast.
Oh wow. That might be a 4. That might be a 4.
Yeah, it's a 4. You guys show that off too. 4 pounds, 12 ounces. Holy. Oop.
Another good one.
Holy sh! What the? Is that another 6?
Could be.
It's the second giant of the day, proving that point. Oh my God! Oh my God!
Yes!
Big baits, big fish. There we go. 5 pounds, 6 ounces. Beauty! Dude, I'm not even joking. It happened again.
You kidding me?
Nope.
Is it big?
Oh! That's strong.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
That's a fat fish, dude.
4.
Holy. Dude. Holy hell, that's long.
Yeah, it is.
5, 4, 6. What?
Yeah. Just rock.
Got him. Get in here, you. There's another 6. You. That's a big fish.
6'10".
Woohoo!
Little fatty.
There we go. Evening, everybody. How we all doing? I need to fix that camera. I just realized how crooked it is, and that's gonna bother me. It is what it is. Nah, it's all right. It's cumbersome, but I know how to fix it, so it's okay. Anyway, how's everybody doing tonight? Welcome back. We have a lot to discuss on crankbaits, and when I say we, I mean he, because I do not do as much cranking as I used to in my younger days. So I am here to learn just as much as the rest of you, which is going to be good. I mean, I have a few things I can add to it, but, you know, not a lot. It's primarily going to be Dennis's deal. But this is the good thing, too, about Dennis joining the team on this, is because he has a mostly different approach to fishing than I definitely do. So we have a lot of overlapping, but also very uniquely different perspectives and experiences and skill sets that we can bring to this to really kind of just help you guys out in any way that we can. So that is the plan tonight. We're talking about Squarebills and shallow crankbaits. He is more than prepared. He's got a whole 3700 that is stuffed to the gills with a bunch of baits that we can talk about.
Sure is.
We have actually already a couple questions people fired at us before the stream started, so we can jump into that. But please, at any time you have a question, hit us with it. We have a starting point at least, but for the most part, I'm anticipating we're going to be answering a lot of questions on this. Before we truly get started, for everybody that already is here, thank you very much. Appreciate you as always. Do us a favor, drop a like, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. Doesn't matter. It helps immensely, and we appreciate you for doing so. Anybody that shared it as well, love it. Jody White, bold shirt, love it. That's how Dennis always comes prepared. Looking good.
That's right.
I was still dressed in all my work attire until about 3 minutes before the stream started, and he was like, you look fancy. You should stay in that. I'm like, no. I need to be comfortable.
I think you looked very classy.
Well, thank you. But like I said, yesterday I was dressed up even nicer. And so I've been on keto for 6 weeks now.
Yeah.
And
You look thin.
thank you. I've lost 10 pounds as of last Friday. So nice, healthy 2 pounds a week.
That's good.
And our CEO of our, like, the corporate level came in yesterday. So dressed up nice. I'm like, oh, damn, I don't have any dress shirts. Well, maybe I do. Went in the closet, pulled out some shirts from the last time I got as low as I am now. Put them on. They fit great. Oh, dude, I felt like a champ. I felt like a real champ. So
backed down into a whole new wardrobe.
I
Or
did.
A whole old wardrobe.
A whole old wardrobe. And I'm going to keep up with this because I got a goal weight in mind before I turn 40 in January. So I will probably need an entire new wardrobe from FXR too, because these sun shirts are already starting to get kind of baggy on me. All said and done, since I started this in March, I am now down 24 pounds.
That's awesome.
Yep. So these are starting to get a little loosey-goosey on me.
It's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem.
Better than going in the other direction.
I know. I do need a new insulated jacket for this winter fishing, and I'm excited to see like what size I'm going to be able to get into. I'm pretty sure I'll just go with a large.
You get an extra small.
Extra room.
Just
yeah.
set a goal.
Oh God. Oh, but at any rate, so we are going to talk all about Squarebills and shallow crankbaits again, and we're going to start with one from Carl because he had a really good question for us before we even got started. But I got it on a messenger, so I'm not going to be able to put it up here. So I'm going to read this one out and then let Dennis start, and I'll fix the camera, and we're just going to roll into it. So,
Okay.
From Carl. Hi, Sean. Looking forward to tonight's show. Can you talk about specific cranks? Can you talk about what specific cranks work best up here in the Northeast? For example, there's a huge cult following on bandits. Not sure if they work as well up here. I consider shallow cranks anything under 10 feet. Would love to hear what works best for everyone up here. One thing for sure, my pre-wrap wiggle warts work. So I guess let's start with the most, I guess, the easiest on this. He says, I consider shallow cranks anything under 10 feet. What is your opinion on the matter? While I fix that. This is like purely opinion.
I could get with that. I would say anything that is like under 6 feet, I would say is shallow. 6 or 7 feet. I feel like I break them down into like shallow, medium, and deep, and I would say medium would be like 8 to 12. So I have a different, like, I don't have anything that dives 10 feet in here. This is all under 10 feet. I have another box. It's mediums that goes 8 to 12.
See, I can get behind that. I would say 6, but you're right. Because almost everything you find is like that 2 to 3 or 4 to 6.
Right.
When you're looking for something truly shallow.
Right.
Then there's like 6 to 12 or 8 to 12. Sometimes you get a couple that are like 8 to 14 or 8 to 16. But for the most part, it seems to be like 6 to 12 or 8 to 12. And then you get like into the true deeper divers after that point.
Yeah.
And then those range anywhere from 18 to 22 to 36 feet. And it's all over the place. But I would concur with that.
Yeah.
6 feet or less, I would consider shallow.
At least that's how I split up my collection.
Yeah. Anything that's in shallow water anchor territory, like your standard 8-footers, which would be 6 feet or less, shallow.
Yeah.
That's another way to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so that's that. And then talk about specific cranks that work best up here in the Northeast. Okay. So that's just a good way to get started. But again, everybody watching, just start firing questions off and we're going to rattle through them. Otherwise, we'll figure out an approach to go through this as we always do.
Yeah.
What are your favorite shallow water cranks? I do have to get one from the other room.
So I would say I don't know. So his specific question here of there's a cult following of bandit down in South. Do we have anything like that up here? I don't really know that we do. I don't think that there's a specific brand that is like a cult following up north. I think the things that I have found, Sean is rattling like a madman in the other room. I know that feeling. The things that I try to focus on up north are going really shallow or going deeper than a typical squarebill would go. So my favorite crankbaits are ones that will have, or at least I'm talking mostly about squarebills, but my favorite squarebills are ones that go a little bit deeper or a little bit shallower than most. And my number one favorite that I'll just show it is I don't know if you can kind of see that. You can reach probably closer than I can.
I got it.
So my number one favorite, if I could only have one crankbait up here to work most of the year, is this. So that's a Depths Evoke 1.8, and you can see that it's a square bill. It has a long bill, but it's still a square. So this is a square bill that dives down 7 feet. So it is kind of almost getting into that 8-foot range, but so it's kind of a medium diver, but this is something where it will hit 7 feet in the very max on a super long cast, but I will grind this up in 2 feet of water, and the action of this, because it is a slightly deeper diver, is different than the action of every other square bill that those fish see, because this thing, you can reel it through anything and it will not get stuck. And being able to have that type of I guess snag proofness down to 7 feet is something that you really don't get in a lot of crankbaits. So that's my number one. I would say the other thing that is key up here is that most of our lakes have a lot of grass. Like if you're fishing down south,
Yeah.
then even I used to go to Smith Mountain Lake in Virginia.
I remember we were
And
talking about that because I
I
was thinking about going down.
yeah, I used to go there like every year and lots of big fish, but there's like no grass. Like I got there and I was like, I can't believe that there's nothing on the bottom. Like the bottom is just nothing. And the fish
Interesting.
fish
Okay.
are positioning on like points and like there are some like rock humps and stuff, but there's just no grass.
Yep.
Like you might find like a little grass patch in like the very back of a cove, but it's not like our lakes up here where the whole bottom is grass.
Yeah.
So it's
like that spot I went Saturday.
yeah,
Literally an endless sea of
Right.
vegetation. I was like, okay.
right. So when that's what you're dealing with, cranking is one of the best ways to deal with that. And that is probably the biggest key that we have up here above down south. Where down south, you want things to kind of hit the bottom and ding off the bottom and stuff. And that's what the Evoke 1.7 will do when you're in deeper areas where there's not grass. But when you're in grass, you want to go above that grass. And you'll see that the majority of this box are, well, you might not be able to see, but Sean can see that the majority of this box are the shallower side of shallow diving crankbaits. And you've seen me fish with this on the river.
Yeah, and you've done really well with them too.
So the key for me is finding whatever crankbait will go down and get right in the top of that grass, but not bog down into the grass. And I'm typically fishing these in like 1 to 3 feet of water. So I want a crankbait that goes down 1 to 2 feet. And that's why I have so many 1 to 2 foot divers in here. So my cult following myself is the cult of me is crankbaits that go down like 1 to 2 feet, especially in like the spring and the summer.
No, that works really well because you're right. That's one of the most common. I don't want to call it an issue, but kind of an issue for trying to fish a variety of techniques up here is the ever-present and I mean literally everywhere vegetation.
Yeah.
And even on bodies of water where you don't have it, whether it's milfoil or pond cabbage or reeds, lily pads, there's that soft carpet of vegetation that covers the whole bottom in so many places.
Yep.
Especially the kettle ponds, which is like the most prevalent kind of body of water that we have here in the Northeast. And it's just really, really hard to get away from. And that was a big reason why I stopped cranking as much, because especially with the way the weather has seemingly changed a little bit, I feel like that bottom carpet of vegetation has gotten worse over the years. So even areas I used to love fishing that were 4 to 8 feet. Now it's just grass that like all of my typical go-tos, like my KVD 1.5s, anything that's like a true 4 to 6 foot crank, I just couldn't keep it out of the grass.
Just burying it.
Yeah, all the time. And then I tried going to, at the time, like I didn't, now, I mean, in my case, now I'm going back like 10, 12 years at this point, and I just didn't know enough. And I didn't know really how to adequately address it. But most importantly, I didn't have the gear to address it. So when I got more into the lighter options that were only 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 foot cranks, I just didn't have the right gear to throw it.
Yeah.
So I'd either backlash or I'd go at 30 feet. And I'm like, okay, I'm just done with this. I'll figure out a different way to fish.
Right.
And that's really the biggest driver why I got away from fishing those. But now that I have the right gear, and I'm enjoying covering water a lot more, especially recently than I have in the last 3, 4, 5 years, where I've been very like spot lock, meticulous, pick this apart with 10 different things from every single possible direction and then move on. Like now I'm getting more in the habit of just covering water, fishing a lot faster, going for that higher probability of success just through sheer volume of casting. So crankbait interest is climbing rapidly.
And you make a really good point that the fact that all of our lakes have grass makes it so you almost can't fish a crankbait the way that everybody tells you to fish a crankbait. Like if you watch a Bassmaster show or like a whatever, any fishing show, and almost 100% of the time they're saying, oh, you're grinding a crankbait along the bottom, you're bouncing it off stuff, and you are like, and that's what I do when I'm fishing deep. Like when I'm fishing a deep crankbait, that's exactly what I'm doing. But you just can't do that up shallow unless you're on a place that just doesn't have grass, which are few and far between up here. If you're reeling it down into the bottom, you're bogging it down in the grass.
Yeah.
So it's like it's almost not like, to answer that question, it's almost that it's not a specific crankbait. It's a strategy and a technique of not fishing it right into the bottom and fishing it above the tips of the grass and being able to trigger those fish that are down in the grass.
Yep. And so the other aspect of that too is like trying to grind bottom. Like I saw a comment, and you know what? I'm going to grab it really quick because it is prevalent to my point I'm about to make from Little Rich. Question: favorite deep crankbait to grind in shallow water? So playing into that, one of my favorite things that I used to love doing when it came to crankbaiting was especially fishing at night. And I had a few ponds that had these beautiful, clean sand flats. Or, you know, part of it was a swim beach. You know, over the years of people playing in there, walking around, the sand kind of gets clouded up, it drifts, and like that sand line extended, just kind of killing off some of that deeper vegetation. Now I can't get around that because it has all been backfilled by either that perch grass that's like that high, or rock snot is what we call it. But it's almost like that black moss. You dredge it up, it's almost like hairy.
Yeah.
And all those spots I used to love doing that, like I can't get around that, even for like deep cranking and stuff. And on some of my favorite glacial lakes where it used to be nothing but just rock and sand, now that rock snot is friggin' everywhere where I could have done that.
Yeah.
But to answer Little Rich's specific or question specifically, basically whatever depth I was targeting, I would pick up a crankbait that went twice that. So you didn't have to work it very hard to get it down to that, and you could work it as a slow crawl and it would still just crash through everything. Two schools of thought on that. You can either work it through it really fast, which I know a lot of people like to do, or in my case, what I'd really like to do is work it slow. So like I can think of one pond in particular where I had a couple of like clean sand to rock piles, and the rocks ended in like maybe 7 or 8 feet. And I would use a 12-foot diving crankbait, and that would work well. If I could have at the time, I would have gone to a 16-foot. But then there's some other sand flats that were like the clean sand ended at 3 feet. So I just go with a 6 to an 8-foot diving model, and that would work just as well because I could just crawl it, and it would have this sexy wobble that's just going doosh, 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 you know, just driving through it and causing all this commotion.
Yeah.
So that was always my approach, and honestly, it was one of my favorite ways to go out night fishing for years. Was doing that for a very long time. That was back in my John boat days.
Ooh.
Yeah, my early 20s. Right now, now we're talking almost 20 years ago. Sad and awesome at the same time. But I don't know. That answers that question at least. What about what is your preference on that for Rich's question?
I would say my favorite crankbait ever is the OSP EXDR, and that dives around 15, 16 feet. So it's, I don't know if I would say that that's on the deep end. It's on the shallow end of deep diving crankbaits, but it's still deep. And I will do exactly what you just said. There's a lake that that I like to go to a lot that has some very, very steep areas.
Yep.
And that is my favorite area to fish that. And I'll do exactly what you said, where I'll cast it up into like 2 feet of water, and I'll reel it really slow, and it'll just all the way down the ledge, just dink, 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 dink as it gets deeper. And I don't know if it looks like a perch like poking in there and trying to get, I don't know, bugs or crawfish or whatever, but I won't reel it fast in that situation when I'm trying to have it like kind of creep down, like the slower,
like follow the contour
right,
almost.
the slower you
way.
reel it, the deeper it'll go. So like I'll try to get it to tick the rocks all the way down until it gets to the bottom.
Yep.
It's a good technique.
It is. It's phenomenal. It's a ton of fun to fish it that way. Chris. Oh, this is actually a really good one too. So I'm glad that our friend Chris pinned this one. Does my 20-pound fluoro anti-pike leader kill too much action on my crankbaits? I want to use 10-pound, but I have no experience on the heavier fluoro when it comes to cranking. I've always thrown it on 10 or 12. I don't think I've ever thrown on anything heavier than that. Have you?
I've never thrown 20. No. I've thrown 17, which is somewhat close. I would say it depends on the crankbait.
If that's what I was thinking.
Like if you're throwing something that has a relatively subtle action, then yes, I would think that would kill a lot of the action, and you're probably losing out on some bites because of that. If you're throwing like a KVD 2.5 or something like that is working like crazy and is really vibrating a lot when you're reeling it, I think that that's normal to throw something like that on heavier line. When I'm throwing some of these Squarebills up really shallow, you can use heavier line to kind of reduce the depth that it's diving as well.
Yes.
So I will frequently throw some of these Squarebills on 15-pound line and sometimes up to 17-pound line, but that's more for depth control. But on a Squarebill, it doesn't really impact the action too much.
I wouldn't think so because it's got such a violent wobble to it versus something like my immediate thought for this went to like a flat side crankbait that's really, really good in cold water. Like that I could see would make a big difference.
Right. Yeah. Then it's just going to be not moving coming in.
Yeah. Ooh, bow potato, straight braid in the grass. See, I could get behind that. That to me, that's kind of like my jackhammer approach in the very early spring, that really, really, really cold water. But when you get that first like abrupt shallow water move, and then that's where it's like straight braid. And I still get crap every year I talk about it. I still get a lot of crap. No, you kill the action on it. You're killing that. You get snagged in the grass. You go pop it out, and you're just shooting it out violently. And you're not giving your fish a chance. My results beg to differ, and I could get behind straight braid in the grass on a crankbait. That's for sure. Oh, that could actually be really good. Like back your drag way off, something really whippy, and then light duty on the braid.
Yeah. Just don't do lockdown drag with a heavy rod. A crankbait, you'll pull every hook.
Which would be fun in a really bad way.
Yeah.
That bite must be insane though. Because usually I think I've only caught maybe 10 fish on a crankbait in the last 5 years.
10?
That's how infrequently I've been throwing them the last 5 years. Because there's a lot of other things that were just working well and I wanted to continue to expand on those things. Yeah. So I just stopped doing it. But there was some instances where I was like, you know what? It just makes sense to throw it right now more than anything. And I get a couple of fish here and there. But the idea of throwing it on straight braid, that bite, that must feel insane.
Yeah, that must be cool.
That must be like a swim jig.
I've never
bite
done that, but that must be cool.
Yeah. Or more like a spinnerbait bite.
I'll try it.
Spinnerbait needs to come back. That bite needs to come back for me. It's bothering me that it's been so inconsistent.
Now's the time.
Now is the time. I tell you what, I'm going to try the hell out of it this weekend when I get out there. Maybe convince the high schoolers for their state championship. I forgot to give a quick update on that if we're going to talk about something just a wee smidge different. So for those that are unaware, or those that do remember, I am the assistant coach on the Souhegan High School bass fishing team. Jake Angulis, who we've had on the show before, absolute hammer of an angler and does exceptionally well in the kayak tournament scene, is the head coach. So I came on to help him out this year. And our team finished in third place at the qualifying tournament last Thursday. So round of applause to Souhegan for a phenomenal finish. They had a little over 20 pounds on 8 smallies, which is pretty good. First place goes to Bedford. Kind of a friend now, Mark Fournier, coaching the Bedford High School team. They had 21 and change, anchored by a 7.33 largie. Caught in the first 10 minutes of the day.
And where's this at?
Winnie. Yep.
Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
There are some big largemouths that have come out of there the past few years.
So I didn't say it to the kids. I didn't want to jinx them. In the back of my head, I was like, if they don't make it to state championship, I'm coming back here. Because I'm starting to get, like, I keep looking at my boat. I'm like, I can go fish Winnie in any conditions. I really want to go do this. But they made it. So last weekend, I was out scouting all day Sunday on Lake Winnisquam, which is where their state championship will be held this coming Saturday, which is awesome. Bet that's going to be, it's going to be pretty fun.
They get the largemouth up north.
Where?
At Winnie?
Yeah, because we launched out of Center Harbor, and you were allowed to go down Center Harbor. I think you're allowed to go all the way over into Meredith Bay, or maybe the cutoff was right at Spindle Point. Could not go to Paugus. So basically, you come out almost to the mouth of basically like Paugus, and then kind of the mouth into Meredith, and you draw a straight line on that southern shore near Governor's Island, and it cuts out, and then you draw like a line around the very entrance to the Broads, if you will, all the way up towards, I forget what the point is, going up into Lee's. So you can go underneath the Long Island Bridge, but you cannot go underneath Long Island down around the southern point.
They couldn't go up into Lee's, actually.
Yes, you could.
Oh, you could?
Yep.
Okay.
So like all of these, essentially all of these mills and everything, Center Harbor, and then all the way out to the mouth of Paugus and Meredith Bay. Maybe Meredith Bay was in play. I can't remember, but it wasn't on our radar, so it doesn't really matter. So I don't know where they went. All I know is that first 10 minutes, they caught a 7.33, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes Saturday. I went out. I was moderately happy with my results. I understand why everybody hates Winnisquam now. That's for damn sure.
Winnisquam's tough.
Jake went out and tried a bunch of different things and went back and tried the pattern I'd found and established that was going to work. So put the kids to work and we'll see what they can do. But hopefully they win it, which would be pretty friggin' awesome. Otherwise, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I meant to bring that up at the beginning. Totally forgot about it. Eric, thank you for clarifying on that. Meredith Bay was in play. Meredith is a strange, very, very strange bay. I have had great success and also got my teeth kicked in up in the grass near the ramp way too many times.
I don't know that I've ever fished Meredith Bay.
Right off the ramp, there's a bunch of grass and it comes way out and all the perch stack around the outside in like 20, 25 feet. All the yellow perch.
That sounds good.
And actually white perch too, I think, are out there. And there's just enough unique structure that tends to hold them there all year, but it's all pond cabbage. From the ramp out to that little teeny tiny island with a little fake friggin' Indian statue on it, if he's still there.
Yeah.
Over towards the little island by the boat club. Like all that is pond cabbage. There's some hard structure kind of hidden inside of that, but then on the outside it just drops off to like a 20, 25 foot shelf for quite a ways. So it's honestly, it's actually really cool. Plus you got current coming in, dropping out of Waukee. So there's like a whole lot of different things into play right
Interesting.
there. Yeah.
I got to fish Meredith Bay now.
I know. It's fun. We've actually done really well in there, topwater smallies too. But
that's cool.
we digress.
Digress.
I digress. I apologize. So we covered actually quite a few good questions so far. There was 2 more. God damn it, Jody. 2 fish a year on a crank. I told you.
Breaking records.
That's my favorite thing about Jody. He's great at talking shit. There you go. Okay, last good question we have that's starred for the time being from Carl. Do you fish the Bandit 100s?
No. I like them. I used to fish them, but I don't have a good answer.
Yeah.
I fish mostly Mega Bass.
Dennis is too bougie for anything that's not high end.
I fish like the Mega Bass version that goes that same depth. But I kind of made a decision. The reason why I like Mega Bass stuff so much is like I kind of made a decision a while back that I was fishing a lot of like Strike King and Bandits and Bomber and stuff like that, and the stuff that's $5 or $6 or $7 at like every place, and it was like there's got to be something about like the fish see this exact same thing over and over and over and over and over again, and maybe you would get better results if you had something that they didn't see over and over and over again. And I had one day where I was actually in a tournament and I was in my boat with one of my buddies, and we were both fishing a jerkbait, and I was fishing a Vision 110.
Yep.
And that was like the first Mega Bass thing that I bought, and he was fishing like I don't know, like a Rapala or something. And I literally caught like 25 fish, and he caught like 2. And it was like I was like, jerk 2 times, wait this many seconds. Like it was like he was doing exactly what I was doing, and it was like the difference is the bait. Like that was it. They were the exact same color or as close as you could get in those 2 brands. The difference was the bait. There was that like the bait is just something that it had a little bit different action that they didn't see all the time.
Yep.
And like everybody that goes there is probably fishing a X-Rap or a Rapala or whatever, and nobody was fishing. That was when Mega Bass wasn't ultra popular right now, like it is now. But it was like that kind of keyed me into like, I got to start using more of this stuff. And then I slowly transitioned everything over to this.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's kind of why I also felt like my crankbait game was bad, because literally all I threw was Rapala, DT4, DT6, DT8, Strike King 1.5s, 2.5s, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing about Mega Bass is the fact that they have so many different colors, so many different patterns, and they look so good.
They look
like they've got one of the best yellow perch patterns out there as far as like hard baits go. And they just have such a wide range of patterns that you can get from like their
crankbait pattern.
Yeah, that's a beautiful bluegill. What the hell?
Yeah.
Like that's just about as perfect gets. So yeah. So and now this is really where like bougie budget. That's the best way to put our two pronged approach here. And like I don't get me wrong, I got plenty of bougie things, but not Mega Bass bougie. Not to say that a lot of my Douglas stuff isn't expensive, and a lot of the loose stuff I have isn't super expensive as well. I got plenty of Mega Bass jerkbaits, but I try to run the whole gambit of everything I've purchased, mostly because out of necessity when I was younger and didn't have as much money to throw around. But also now out of practicality, where I do have money to throw around, but I've got, an excess in some things like crankbaits. Like again, it's KVD 1.5. It's one of my favorite Squarebills. This thing just works really well. I just hate the lack of color options on these baits. However, the few that they do have are really good. That's KVD 2.5, and it's just a chartreuse and a black back. It's about as standard gets. That thing still kills it, especially for smallmouth. So like I'm happy with those, and this is my plan. Like I want to start diving a little bit more into some of these. However, what I didn't bring in was it is essentially the size of almost 3 Plano 3700s, but it's like it's a cobalt tool case. And I have that just for Squarebills from Strike King, because when we were signed by Strike King a couple of years ago, we got.
You must have got hundreds, right?
Yeah, we got a lot. I can't. So like, there's literally those big white bins beside you.
Yeah,
that's still all the excess of soft plastics just from Strike King we got in that 1 year deal, and it's all stuff we got to choose. And from that, it was like $800 at the discounted price that we got in just crankbaits.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so like I have a lot to go through, and it's like, yeah, I would love to continue to buy these, but from a practical sense, I'm like,
burn through some of your
should probably go burn through at least a quarter of these before I start spending money on those things.
I sold stuff too. Like,
yeah,
I wasn't just like right. Like I sold everything. I sold all my rods. I sold all my baits, and like I had the same thing. I had like 5 boxes of Strike King baits, or Strike King and Berkeley and all that, and I sold them all. And it was like, I'm gonna replace this with 1 box of Mega Bass baits, and then I just did that over years. Like I didn't buy all this stuff in like 6 months. I did it over years.
Trying to think. So we talked a little bit about your favorites and the reason why, what we deem shallow water.
Yeah.
Let's really get into the fall specifics first. Then we'll go back and we'll cover gear, because at least that I know I can definitively speak to, and at least make it so you're not carrying the entire conversation.
Sure.
But fall fishing. So I don't know what you found last weekend for water temperatures, but what I found, I mean, Winnie was 68 to 69, and we were up near like, I don't even want to say where we were. We were north. We weren't too far from Center Harbor.
We were in New England.
We were in New England. And then I went to Winnisquam on Sunday, and the water temp was kind of all over the place. 69 to 71, depending on where we were. Actually, I think I found 67 in one spot. So we're getting there. Like right now, I would say confidently in all these bigger bodies of water, we're probably high 60s. In the smaller bodies of water, I mean, a week and a half ago now, I went to that little place where I got the 492 and the 552, and it was 71 there.
Yeah, the place I went on, whenever it was Friday, it was 67.
Yeah, so those smaller bodies of water are battling these cooler overnight temperatures, but still like high 60s, low 70s with a lot of sun. So just kind of warming it back up. Everything's just kind of like evening out, washing out in the end. So with that in mind, is we're still kind of at that fall transition.
Yep.
And with that, what's your first approach? Like when you get out there, you know you want to go crank, like what's the first thing that you're doing?
So I'm finding bait. So if anybody saw, I posted a couple things on Facebook about the day that I went out on Friday. This time of year, whether you're cranking or not, what you have to do is you have to find bait. And the bait this time of year are probably in 1 foot of water somewhere. You might find some stuff out deep. Like I ran into some schools of bait that were out in 20 feet, but driving around it and graphing, there were no bass around them. It was just bait.
Yep.
The bait that bass were feeding on were in literally 1 foot of water, to the point where to get my boat up there, I had to like lift my motor. Like my motor was dragging on the ground. I had to lift my motor up and like find like snake through like a little ditch in the 1 foot section. But we were literally catching them on shallow jerk baits, drop shots. I got one on a crankbait. I didn't really, because I was catching them on jerk baits and everything, but we were getting them in like 1 to 2 feet of water, a couple out in like 3 feet, but it was literally as shallow as you could get your boat is where they were. And that is what I find this time of year, every fall. That's my best pattern, is finding, they like inlets this time of year, like the
big time.
Think that like the fish are going where the bait go, the bait are going where the bait's food is. And this time of year, the bait's food is bugs and stuff like that are dying off. And there are more bugs in areas where there's an inlet that's bringing in water from like a swamp or a wetland or something like that, or even a stream. And there's also a lot of those things in the very backs of pockets and the very backs of creeks and things like that where it gets shallow and weedy.
Yep.
So that's where you'll get those little clouds of tiny, like they were eating bait fish like this, like little tiny like that. And
yeah, all right.
and that's like that's the only spot where we saw bass. And what I said in the post, I think, was like, if you didn't find one of those 2 spots where we found them, you would think like there's not a single fish in this whole lake. Like there was, because we looked everywhere and we did some fishing through other areas, and it was just as dead could be.
Yep.
But as soon as you got into this area in a foot of water, it was like, oh, this place is jam packed with fish. Like it's full of life. So that's my number one thing, is that whether you're cranking or not this time of year, fish fast, and don't get stuck on trying to convince something to bite, because somewhere on the lake they are going to be up shallow and they are going to be eating, and you just have to find where that is.
Yeah.
And when you do, like where we did, we might have gone hours without a bite, but then we caught 12 in that one spot. So like once you find it, it's worth it. You just have to find it.
Yep. Nope, I can get behind that. Do you have a specific color you'd like to start with? Like right now, you knowing that they're up in those shallow backwater pockets, do you always have a color in mind that you're going to start with? And then if that doesn't pan out, what's your next move from there?
So I will say my number one color, it depends on what they're eating, but they're going to be eating either young of the year yellow perch, or young of the year shiners. So I usually have both of those things tied on. So like that's why I took these out. So this is a Megabass Flap Slap, the shallow diver. This is actually a bluegill color, but it looks very much like a yellow perch. Yellow perch are young and they're still pale before they really get yellow. So that, and it has the red, just like young perch have on them. So if they're eating perch, this is the exact shape of a perch. This is the exact size of the young of the year perch and what they'll be this time of year. That is my number one thing to start with if I'm up really shallow and I see that they're chasing perch. This does dive down, like it can go down to like 3 or 4 feet on a really long cast. But if you keep your rod tip up in the air and you kind of pay attention to where you're casting it, I fish this thing through 1 to 2 feet of water, no problem.
Is that something you're typically throwing on that heavier line, or are you still sticking with 10 or 12 pound?
That one, because I'm not going to throw that into like wood or anything, I'm usually on 12 pound on that. My other thing, if I see that they're eating shiners, then this, I don't even know the name of it. This is an Imakatsu I can't even read it. Geisha shad.
Okay.
But I don't know. Look up Imakatsu crankbaits and you'll see this. But this is a little tiny crankbait. It has it does have a square bill. It's a little rounded, but it has a square bill. And it looks exactly like a shiner. Like it could not look more like a shiner.
You're
like,
absolutely right about that.
This looks like a live shiner that somebody put 2 treble hooks on. So if I know that they're eating shiners, this thing is like a magic lure. Like you will not throw anything better than this. Like they will inhale this to the point where it almost becomes a problem because they swallow it. So like it's
oh damn.
So those are my 2 things. Both of those are things that dive 4 feet or less, but I'm not usually fishing them in 4 feet. I'm usually fishing them in like 2 feet. So you want to limit yourself to things that aren't going to dive. Like this isn't a situation where you want something that's diving 12 feet because they're usually in areas that are grassy. Like I was fishing in grass and I was doing everything I could to keep my bait above the grass.
I want to take that to one particular pond that the amount of shiners and yellow perch that stack up there at that inlet is just dumb.
I don't know the pond that you mean.
Yeah, you do. The pond in which we do not speak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you go up in that inlet and there's thousands of shiners.
Really?
Yep.
Oh yeah,
it's just ridiculous, and it boggles my mind that they're there like all year. They just never leave that inlet. It's friggin' wild.
Interesting.
But especially right now, this time of the year, like some of my best days for this fall transition and going into the fall bite have been in that inlet. Like from that shoreline, 200 feet to the side of the other side of the inlet shoreline, and then from the mouth of the inlet out maybe 150 feet. So that 150 by 250 foot stretch, it's just they stack right there.
That's awesome.
And it's dumb, but it's weird because you would think like, okay, there's somebody in here, like there's gotta be some crews on the outside. No, you gotta be inside that one window, or otherwise you're not gonna get bit.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how many fish stuff themselves in that one little freaking 150 by 250 square, a rectangle. It's insane. I gotta buy one of those. I'm gonna have to go out and get something. Although I did just buy some stuff for my St. Lawrence River tournament in 2 weeks, so I should probably lay off on the spending a little bit.
No, you can buy one.
Yeah,
these ones actually aren't that expensive, I don't think. I don't know. Maybe they are.
Jody had a really good question though. What hooks do you use?
For the majority of these, I will use the stock hooks because Megabass bait, like most of the things that I use, like Megabass, Depths, OSP, Imakatsu, like they're expensive, but they come with good hardware. So like I'm using the stock hooks on them. When I do replace them, Depths actually sells. It might not be Depths, but if you there are hooks that Depths uses. I forget what they are. I'll look them up. But I will buy those and I will replace them. I'll replace other things with the hooks that Depths uses. Because, I don't know. Like, look at that hook. It's very sticky.
Yes, it is.
So
that's like Megabass sticky, but stout.
Yeah. So the hooks that Depths uses, I don't know if somebody can look it up in the background or something, but whatever that is, those are the ones that I buy when I do buy replacement hooks. I just can't remember what they are. They might be Ryugi's. I think they're probably Ryugi.
Interesting. I never change my hooks. If I need to change my hooks, I just buy a new crankbait. Or in my case right now, I just go grab one from the pile of unused crankbaits. I've actually, no, I can't even speak to it. It's been so long. I have replaced them. Actually, you can see I've got some mustads over there.
Yeah.
I you just bought those, like whatever I could find on the fly. Some Gamakatsus. Although those Gamakatsus that I've bought, those are like the cheaper ones that they produce.
They're still fine though.
Yeah, they're still fine. Yeah. But those are typically the ones I get. They're heavier gauge. I'm using like top water and some like deeper diving cranks. For my shallower ones and like jerk baits, I like those mustads. For some reason, they have the right feel, the right weight, the right spacing on the hook shank to the bend. Just I don't know, they're good. I got nothing to complain about.
Oh, that's the best.
God damn it, Jody.
That is the best. The only time, like I agree, like with the baits I'm buying, I don't need to change the hooks. But the only time I do use those like extra hooks to change the hooks is like I had like somebody, I think it was in that chat that somebody sent you. Like I have some like pre-Rapala wiggle warts, and I have some like very old topwaters and stuff like that. And like obviously those hooks are not good because the baits are 40 years old.
Yeah,
so like those ones I will swap them out and I'll use this. I'm pretty sure they're Ryugi's, but I'll look it up in the background after.
Nice. I like it. Jody, because I love you, I put that up because it was funny. It was fantastic. Dogwood. Nice mason jar, Sean. This just happens to be some Jefferson's. Very, very good. I like this better than the Whistle Pig 10-year. For anybody that's curious, it's good stuff. Should actually just do something like that one night. You can bring all your bougie beer. I can't touch it. This is keto friendly.
This is just
this
is Canada Dry.
It's not your bougie beer. Oh right. Okay, we get rid of that one, but that one's good. Do you throw the Megabass Big M 4.0?
I only have one of them, and I will throw it sometimes on Champlain, but I'll mostly just catch pike with it. So I don't throw it that much, but it is fun to catch pike on them. But so yes, I have thrown it, but I don't throw it. It's not like in my repertoire of normal things that I throw all the time.
So I am unfamiliar with it.
It's a giant shallow diving crankbait.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say not only am I unfamiliar with it, but in case anybody else in the chat is unfamiliar, it'd be good to elaborate. But you say giant, like
it's like a 2-ounce shallow diving crankbait.
Oh my
like
god, how deep does it go? 4 feet, I'm assuming.
Goes it's I mean, I can't remember some because they're in meters, so they have a few different sizes, and some of them are like true squarebill, and some
Yeah.
of them will go down to like 15 feet.
I think I have something like that over here. While you continue, there was. Oh, here you can. While I go grab it. That's a good question from Chris.
Straight to the split ring or use a snap to I don't use a snap on anything. Like if I had my choice, I would not use a snap. I don't know that you're gonna lose an astronomical amount of bites if you have a split ring and a snap swivel or something like that. But in my mind, most of the areas that we're fishing are relatively clear, and like I want to take any extra hardware out of the equation and not worry about it costing me bites. So I just use the split ring and don't worry about the snap. What are you doing?
So like random crap we were talking about.
Yeah. Oh my god, that is a big.
That was what Andrew wanted.
Is that for stripers?
This one for you know what? Didn't even think about that.
Really good for stripers.
And for night fishing, like this,
Yeah, that
this
would
is
be
what
good.
the goal was.
Yeah,
Something
that's
big
cool.
like that. If I don't have them in here, they're in the other room. Oh,
What are we? Where are we here? Did we talk Megabass Z2 yet? How do I? Yeah, there we go. We did not. Megabass Z2 is another good one. It is not one of the ones that I personally use as much as some of the other things. The only reason is because it's very light and it's just harder to cast than some of the other things. One bait that I will say that I use, and again I don't know the name of this, instead of the Z2 that goes, it's kind of a similar shape and goes a similar depth, is somebody I'm sure in the chat is going to know this, but this is a Raid. I think it's called a Raid Gorilla crankbait. I want to say Gorilla something or other, and it dives about 2 feet down, sometimes 3 feet down on a really long cast, and similar profile, similar action to the Z2. But the thing about this is it's like very, very solid. It's like a tank. Like you can cast this thing super, super far, much further than at least I can cast a Z2. So I started using the Z2s when they came out, and then once I got a hold of some of these, I basically only use these now instead of the Z2s because it in that situation, just because I can cast it twice as far.
so I found it. It's a KVD 8.0.
Oh yeah,
Dives to 7 feet.
That's a big
So literally a foot off what we were talking about, but like that's a big squarebill. I actually have another one that I'm pretty sure is the KVD 4.0, which is bigger than this, and it truly only goes 4 feet. But I threw the hell out of this thing and never caught a fish on it. And I was quite upset because they just look so awesome.
tips on cooking prime rib. I could give you the recipe if you want the recipe for that prime rib.
Dude, that
came
did
out
look
really good.
I
Came out
bet.
really good.
It was cooked perfect. That was beautiful. Grat said Raid Griller.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, that's
Okay.
this one. Yep. I caught. Remember, we went to the Nashua River early in the year. I caught a bunch of fish on this.
Yep. You did talk about that. Jody White, split ring pliers are a great investment, by the way. Yep,
Sure are.
wholeheartedly agree. I always have a pair on the boat.
Save your fingernails.
There's I can't remember what brand, but you can get double duty. It's both split ring pliers and scissors, like in one combo. And there's kind of some other functionality to them, but really those are the two biggest features that I like about them. And they actually hold up really, really well for cutting braid. So those are good. David, that's right. You have a Big M 4.0. I gave you one of the Boxborough show. Tell me that one's right here.
I'm excited to see it.
I still haven't put friggin' hooks.
Oh, you're the worst.
I am. I really am the worst.
Well, he only catches 2 fish a year on crankbaits, so you got to wait a few years. This is an amazing color.
I know.
Is this custom? This has to be custom.
It is.
right?
David paints some friggin' amazing patterns.
Can David paint some amazing patterns for Dennis?
David can probably paint some amazing patterns for Dennis, but yeah, haven't forgot about it, buddy.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna have to start throwing this again. I mean, really, right now.
I want that in a more reasonable size crankbait.
Yeah, I mean, dude.
I mean, it looks awesome in that. That's the size of a crappie too.
Yeah. I wonder. How fast does this float back up when you pause it? Does it rocket up or is it kind of hang a little bit and slowly float up?
It's not super fast because it's so heavy.
Good, because I'm gonna throw this in March when I'm down fishing in Mass, and we literally will go out specifically looking for bass around schools of crappie.
Yeah.
And we either catch bass or we just smoke those crappie, and it's a win-win. But I now am greatly intrigued about the idea of throwing this around those schools, working it really, really slow.
Put a suspend strip on it. That is
Yep.
like that's my number one wiggle wart thing, is like a pre-rapple, a wiggle wart with like half of a suspend strip on the belly of it. Oh God. Did you break everything?
No, everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Like that, when the water is like 40 degrees, is like, oof, oof.
Yep.
The fish love it.
It's funny you say that because we've talked about it a lot for like early spring cranking in the past. And I forgot to bring in that one box I have like the majority of my shallow diving cranks in. And there's probably half dozen in there that've got like 4 or 5 suspend dots on them.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically for that reason, like getting up and really, really shallow, and they won't hit a suspending jerkbait, but they want something really shallow and really slow that doesn't quite suspend, but will just have a really slight pause and slow rise. And I've run into it enough that I have quite a few baits. Like I said, I probably got half dozen baits in there that I left all the suspend dots on. They've probably fallen off by now because I fish them so infrequently, but I had really good luck with that.
Must have been years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. This was pre-Andrew days. That's how long ago it was. Now that I think about it. No, I did it a couple times fishing with Andrew when he jumped in. But yeah, it's been a while. That one I figured out a long time ago. Christ, that was probably 10 or 12 years ago now. That was with my buddy Rafter. Damn.
Sounds made up.
Yeah. Wow. No. Wow. Jesus, I'm getting old. I turned 40 in January. Did I talk about that?
You're most of the way dead. It's almost over.
There's a woman I work with who is 6 years younger than me. Then we were talking because she, like, we know a bunch of mutual friends. We have a bunch of mutual friends, I should say. And she's like, wait a minute, what year did you graduate high school? I'm like, oh, 3. She's like, oh, you're old. I'm like, fuck you, you're 6 years younger than me. We still have a good laugh about it, though. It's fun. All right, so that got you all. I mean, Christ, that got you everything. So you got your favorites, you got favorite colors, you got specific areas you're targeting right now. Let's take it a step further. So you talked about what you're doing right now with that water is anywhere from high 60s to low 70s.
Yep.
I saw a couple of people in the chat saying next week it started to get a lot colder. So that cool down is damn near upon us. And once you get down from, we'll say, current, let's just say that cold front hits today. And for the next week, we're going to drop anywhere from 3 to 10 degrees.
Okay.
Wow. What are you doing changing your approach with the Squarebill or shallow diving crankbait as that water temperature falls for the next 10 degrees?
So I think the next 10 degrees, you're pretty safe fishing what I just said. But as it starts to drop beyond that, and it starts to get to the point where the water is really getting into like the low 50s, mid 50s and low 50s, that's really when the fish will get away from all the grass and they will go to hard cover. And that's when I would say going to a more traditional crankbait, like one of your KVDs or the one that I use, the Depths Evoke.
Yep.
And that's where you're really wanting to get into that cover, into the rocks, into the trees. The fish will get away from the grass and they'll go into hard cover. Kind of the reverse of what they do in the spring. In the spring, they're going from like those steep wintering areas, getting on hard cover, and then eventually moving up into like shallow bays. Now they're in shallow bays. They're going to move back to that hard cover until they eventually make their way down into their wintering areas again. So trying to intersect them at hard cover, rocks and trees. That's where I think you do well fishing a crankbait that goes deeper than the cover that you're fishing. So not what I just talked about in fishing grass where you're trying to keep it above it. You want something that goes deeper than the depth that you're fishing so that it's banging into that hard cover because you're fishing hard cover. So you're not going to get snagged in grass. That being said, you're fishing around cover. So you're fishing around a lot of wood and rocks and you will get snagged. So using something that is a deeper diving Squarebill, which is why I use the Evoke 1.8, because I can fish a Squarebill down in 7 feet, and a Squarebill is a lot more snag proof than a traditional round bill. So it's definitely one to look into, but that would be my strategy.
I like it. I'm not even going to try and throw my 2 cents in it because not only is my cranking experience pretty minimal, but especially in the fall, I mean, literally the only thing I would used to do, and now this is really going back. Now we're talking 18 years ago, 16 to 18 years ago when I last did this on the regular.
So you were like 36 years old.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah.
Math adds up. And I can think of a couple of ponds where kettle ponds, max average depth 10 to 12 feet. And you'd have a lot of pond cabbage and or milfoil in 6 feet or less. But that would usually end somewhere 6, 7, 8 feet deep. And you'd have a very clear cut line. And all those fish would be inside the vegetation. And in the deep summer, going into that late fall transition, like kind of like where we're at right now, a lot of that milfoil starts to die off just a little bit. The pond cabbage really starts to wilt and die off. And, especially on the edges, I feel like, and it kind of creeps in where you have that uniform shallow depth. And on the outside, where the vegetation line would really end, it's kettle pond. Otherwise, other than that vegetation, whatever's on the shore, there's nothing else in the middle. They'll move outside of that defined weed line and just roam the flats in that extra 2 feet of depth once we got down into like that lower 60s, upper 50s. And now I'm in 8 to 10 feet. I would go out and work an 8-foot crankbait, and I would work it super, super slow. So it was just off the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I had phenomenal success doing that with nothing other than just a yellow perch crankbait, a DT6 or a DT8, or not necessarily DT series, but another one of those Rapala or Strike King kind of models that had more of that spoon build to it, like elongated, but still was only like an 8-foot depth. And I have really, really good luck working that on the outside. And it just like literally just fan cast those areas. I knew exactly where that weed line edged. I'd cast like from 10 feet off it and further out for like another 300 feet. And that was the only thing that was consistent for me. The times I did that. It's good. It worked.
I like it. If it works, it works.
That it does. Let's it's already 9. Let's talk about gear, because it's one thing we haven't talked about. And I will give you a break for a minute so I can talk about this a little bit. But you know what? No, I can just bring up this one, but I want to make sure I get the model exactly right. So bear with me for 1 second. That's what it was.
They have center pin rods?
Yes, they do.
Well, I'm gonna get one.
So they have it for the X Matrix, but I want to give everybody a wide range of options here for cost, because trying to keep, just trying to make it everything that we talk about more is easily accessible for as many people as possible. So we got 3 different series of Douglas rods we're going to talk about, but there's also a Lew's rod that I want to talk about. So while I'm looking this up, you know what? What is your absolute favorite shallow crankbait setup?
It's actually not that expensive. Well, it is, but it's not as expensive as a lot of the other things that I talk about. So my favorite shallower crankbait setup is a Megabass Orochi flat side special is the rod, and for a reel I just use a what's the Shimano reel that I use on everything?
Corrado.
I use a Corrado with like a 6 to 1 or 6.3 to 1 or 6.5 to 1 or whatever gear ratio, but it's it's still a $300 rod or whatnot, but it's moderate range, moderate priced.
Yeah, that's really not that bad.
It's
Grand
not that
scheme
bad.
of things.
Not that bad compared to a lot of the other Megabass rods that are $600.
Right. Okay. I have a whole host of rods to suggest. Jody, it's not that expensive.
It's not as expensive.
Right. Yeah, you talk about crowd. What do you throw for line? Did you mention that?
Mostly I throw 12-pound. The only time that I really won't throw 12-pound is if I'm around like ultra, like if I'm fishing stump field or something that, and it's like I'm gonna get stuck 50 times while I'm out here today, then I'll go up to like 15 or 17 pound.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So again, while I don't do a ton of cranking, pretty much everything I buy always has some sort of dual purpose, other than really my jig rods and my drop shot rods. Those I like just for that one technique. But my cranking setup is also usually jerkbait setup, whether it's a regular Vision 110 or 110+2. So I want a rod that can handle these smaller, lighter duty crankbaits, and also just a Vision 110 or a 110+1 Junior. Tend to be a lot lighter. But then another rod that can handle, it's like, so that's also like a KVD 1.5 rod. And then I've got one that's like a KVD 2.5 rod or something a little bit bigger that I'm going to throw, can dive 16 feet ish, that I haven't gotten into too much that dives deeper than that. I think I got some 22-foot diving model crankbaits, but they're not super heavy. I got this KVD 8.0, but I think I threw that on my jig rod at the time I was doing it because I felt like it was going to break all my two other crankbait rods. But so what I specifically use, what I am actively using for my current rod for my light duty crankbaits, it also doubles as my primary jerkbait rod, is a Team Lose Custom Pro rod. It's a full cork handle. It is their all-purpose rod. It's the TLC PAPC. It's a 7-foot medium moderate fast. I love this rod. I know a lot of guys that like to go a little bit shorter. I tried to find like a 6'10 rod, but I'm 6'2", so I've got a little bit more height on the average person. So trying to work a jerkbait rod, kind of low, or a crankbait rod, trying to keep the tip low, for me is a little bit easier than some others. So I don't mind the 7-foot rod. I don't have anything over that length for when I do this. So 6'10" to 7-foot. I like a 7-foot medium moderate fast. It's my go-to. Again, that Team Lose Custom Pro rod. I've paired that with a Lose Tournament Pro bait cast reel, 6.3 to 1. Keep it pretty straightforward. And currently running the Defiant soft casting 9.6 pound fluoro, straight fluoro on it. I like that setup. Like it works really well. I like that softer fluorocarbon just to give it that extra little bit of stretch on it.
Lighter than I expected.
Well, that's it. Yeah. I mean, again, like that's primarily for jerkbait fishing too.
Oh, okay.
And I'm happy with that.
Duty, yeah.
But for my smaller crankbaits, it works exceptionally well. So I try not to overcomplicate it for that when I do it so infrequently. Now, my go-to on the heavier stuff, and again, this is primarily for my heavier jerkbaits, but also doubles as a heavier duty crankbait rod, is the, wait, I want to make sure I get this right. Sorry. Douglas X Matrix DXC 704M. So that's another 7-foot medium moderate rod. So, but it's more on the moderate fast side than moderate. Like it's got a lot of sweep to it, a lot of bend. It's nice. I like it. It slings a Megabass Vision 110+2 beautifully, but it also loads up when you just kind of twist at your hips and lean into the rod. And that one I throw on the primarily Defiant soft casting 11.6 pound fluorocarbon, because almost all their lines are some form of a decimal place. They're dead accurate on what they weight their line at. And I like that because it works really well. Again, the KVD 2.5 is anything a little bit heavier than that. I don't think I'd throw that Megabass 4, that M4. I don't know. Maybe?
No, it weighs more than that.
How heavy is this?
If I remember correctly, it's like 2 ounces.
Okay, I wouldn't throw it on that. I would probably throw this on one of my jig rods, my X Matrix 715F, and I'd just swap reels around on it, and I'd be able to get by on that. So those are the ones that I actually actively use. Now, if you don't want to spend $290 on an X Matrix, then Team Lose, their custom pro rod, is actually really good. So I actually have to go through and select literally everything. That's $230. So $290 down to $230. Taking it back a step even further, Douglas also has their LRS series, and they have an LRS C704M. So it's the same thing as the X Matrix I currently use, but that's $190 for a 7-foot medium moderate fast.
That's reasonable.
Yep. That's a really good option. And then I talked about this recently, I think on the 2 previous streams, the new Douglas ERA rods. Oh yeah, get it. That's $100 rods, $99. And you can find, by the way, literally every single one of these Douglas rods is available at Ben's Tackle Shack in Leicester, Mass. If you want to drive down there and take a look at it, put your hand up, full camera for, oh, there you go. Never mind. God, that's beautiful. It really is nice.
That looks awesome.
But yeah, the Douglas ERA rods, they do have, for a casting rod, they have a crankbait / underspin model. It's another 7-foot medium moderate action. I haven't used this one personally, but I'm going to guarantee you that you will be incredibly surprised by how well these rods perform at that $99 retail price. It is stupid how good those rods are. I have 2 of them. I have their 7.4 medium heavy fast for a casting rod, and then I have their topwater / jerkbait model on the spinning rod, 7-foot medium fast. I seriously, it's like they're actually 2 of my favorite rods I've been using them lately. But again, it's $100 rod. So anywhere from how much did you say your setup was? Your rod alone?
I think it's 300.
300. Okay, so actually the X Matrix just behind that. So you got your Megabass.
Yep.
Megabass rod at 300. Douglas X Matrix at 290. The Team Lose Custom Pro rod at 230. The Douglas LRS series at 190. The Douglas ERA series at 100. I would also throw in the Lose Signature Series rods. I don't remember specifically what model it is. I only had 2 different ones from those, but zero complaints on that rod lineup. So if that's something else you're interested in, then go for that too. I keep it pretty simple. Just again, a 6.3-1 reel. The Tournament Pro, it's a $200 reel, buttery smooth. And it works really, really well for the lightweight stuff. I'm not sure I really want to try it on anything heavier. I don't want to overwork it. It seems like a pretty light duty reel. If I'm going to go with something heavier than for the same retail price, the Lose BB1 reel, I've had 5 of them now, and they're all incredible. They've held up very well. The first one I got 4 years ago, zero tuning, zero cleaning. It's just starting to show some wear and tear and like needs some love to really get a lot more out of it. That's still pretty good in my opinion for a $200 reel, especially with how much I use the damn things.
You're gonna clean it? Or you're just gonna replace it?
No, I'm just gonna replace it. Well, it's the older model too, so like that's if it was the same model they had out right now, they'd be like, yeah, I'll go clean it. But the newer model, I bought 2 more of them this year, and they're way sexier looking. So I'm like, no, I want the new one.
I am exactly the same. Like I'll use a reel and then it will get like bogged down and like not work, and I'm like, I hate this reel now. And like I could probably clean it in like 10 minutes and have it be like brand new, but it's like, I'm going to get a new reel.
I won't do it. If I'm going to get any of my reels clean, I'm going to call Mike Mello at The Real Deal. And he does,
What's the reel?
He's out of Massachusetts.
Okay.
And literally everybody I've ever talked to that's had to get a reel tuned up and cleaned up, they go to Mike. I've heard nothing but phenomenal things about Mike and his service. So if I decide to get one of my reels cleaned up and tuned, I'm calling Mike.
I wonder how much that costs. I wonder like if you
I think
did,
it
like,
varies.
you did like, I'm bringing you 10 reels, like just do all of them.
He might. Well, especially if it's a straight cleaning service, but he'll also upgrade things for you too. Like if you want, like I've got those spool high-speed bearings that I bought for one of the reel. I can't remember what reel I bought those for. I bought them at one of the expos 3 or 4 years ago, and I literally didn't do anything with it.
That way you can backlash even faster.
Exactly.
Yes.
And but the one time I tried taking apart a reel and cleaning it, it was a disaster, and I could not put it all back together. I'm like, never again. I can fix just about anything you put in my hands, unless it comes to teeny tiny little components, and then I just lose my shit. I got stupid clumsy ham hands, so it just doesn't work. You want me to build you something like swinging around a hammer and some nails? Yeah, I'm your guy. You want me to fix like your watch?
Not possible.
Nope. I'm not your guy. So we're not even gonna go down that path. And yeah, like I mean, prior to using all the Defiant line, I was big on the Seagar InvisX because to me that was always a very stretchy fluorocarbon. So I use that almost exclusively for all my cranking applications. But now I've replaced that with the Defiant soft casting, and it's phenomenal. I have zero complaints with that line too. And then that also doubles as my leaders for all my spinning setups. Fair. So it works out really well.
Maybe I'll try it.
I think you should, sir.
Maybe I will.
I think you'll be exquisitely pleased. All right, Carl, what about the Bill Dance fat-free shads? Fingerlings?
Bill Dance fat-free shads are very good in the summer, but they have a very wide wobble. Like in the winter, in the fall, you want something has this kind of wobble, not this kind of wobble. This kind of wobble is the summertime, water's warm, you're trying to get as much commotion and have fish see it from really far away, and they're okay eating something that's moving like crazy with that kind of action. In the fall, when the water's cold, you want something that's more subtle, that's kind of rocking like this rather than really wide wobbles. So it is good, not really good this time of year.
Okay, fair enough. I've never used it. I have work and family texting me, so I have to kind of pull double duty on this. I'm sorry. Michael Bradley, how do you deal with all the leaves on the water in the fall and trying to crank? Oh, God, dude, that's the worst. The pine needles is what drives me up a wall.
I mean, I don't have a good answer. I don't know. I mean, I pull pine needles and leaves off my line every cast. That's
pray you land in a good spot and you get a clean line as you're coming through.
If you find a good solution, let me know.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that either. It's because it's what I was dealing with that on Sunday. I was like, yeah, I forget. I don't want to give any details in case somebody's watching. I really want to put our high schools in the best possible spot. But there was a time where like literally every cast I was pulling out pine needles, or like I'd get a really long cast and my line would fall and I wasn't paying attention. I'd see a little pine needle like 20 feet from the boat. My line would just instantly snag. So I'd lift up my line, just shake it violently, trying to get it to break off.
Grat just made a good point in the chat that what I said about the wide wobble is true, but for some reason, a wiggle wart is one of the best cold water things. There's something about
I've heard that for years.
Yes, there's something about the action of a wiggle wart that in cold water they eat it. It doesn't make sense because I've tried other crankbaits that have that same type of action and are intended to basically rip off a wiggle wart, and they just don't work as well. But a wiggle wart, specifically a wiggle wart, an old one before Rapala bought them, they're magic in cold water, which goes against all theories that I just said about the wobble and all that. Like, that is true for everything except for a wiggle wart for some reason. I don't know what it is, but they work really well in the winter.
I've heard that from so many people for so long, and I just still haven't bought any because I don't know why. But
you gotta get they're like $80 to get one on like eBay to get a pre-Rapala one, and then if you lose it, it's like.
Yeah, we had Mark Burgess on talking about his win on for the Bass Nation Regional, like the new super regional format they have up on Champlain, and he lost 4 of those OGs, and he was like, "Yeah, that hurt. I had to stop doing that." And there you go, right from the chat. Carl talking about Mike Mello does 100% of my reels. You have no idea what he can do to your reels. He's a master. I have heard nothing but good things. Plus, he's a wicked good dude, like one of the nicest guys I've met. I cannot say enough good things about Mike. So if you're interested, look him up. The Real Deal. I think it's just that. I want to make sure I get that right. The Real Deal Fish. It's Real Deal spelt the same way I do. Real Deal.
It was right there. Real Repair.
Oh yeah, right there. Look at that. I think you just got to look him up on Facebook. Yes, correct. And I was right. Just the Real Deal. REEL. Real Deal. Makes sense, right? Fishing reels. Real Deal. Pretty straightforward.
I see what he did there.
Yeah, he's smart. Hide that, and then Grat, do you find switching to a silent crank when the water gets cold gets bit more?
You want to go first?
I can't answer that. I literally don't own a single silent crankbait.
I don't own a lot of deeper diving silent crankbaits. I do own some shallow diving silent crankbaits. I would say I don't know that it's necessarily that it's cold. I think that when the fish are in a more spooky mood, which can be because they're in a foot of water and everything spooks them when they're up in a foot of water, or it could be because the water's super clear. Like in those situations, I do think like a more subtle thing that isn't making a huge racket can get you some more bites. Not always. Like I have jerk baits that rattle and jerk baits that don't rattle, and I have noticed that sometimes I'll go through an area with a jerk bait that rattles, catch a bunch of fish, stop getting bit, go back through it with one that goes the same depth that doesn't rattle, and I'll maybe get one more.
Yeah.
And it's like, would I have got that if I just kept fishing long enough with the other one? Maybe. I don't know.
Right.
But like I do believe there's something there.
Yep. No, I can believe that. I mean, there you go. Clarity and conditions. I agree that can play into it. Jason, thank you for that. I wasn't even paying attention. I haven't even actually seen how many were watching. Currently, well, total between Facebook and YouTube, 69 watching and only 31 likes. I'll remind the people again. I mean, no pressure, but would greatly appreciate it if you're watching. Drop a like wherever you're watching. It really, really, really does help the channel grow. So I appreciate those that are taking the effort to do that.
I think there should be pressure. We should start kicking people out that haven't liked it.
Jody, the key is to fish lakes and no grass and no trees nearby.
Exactly. Carl's saying he's got 400 pre-Rapala wiggle warts. We can set up some sort of deal here with Carl.
He said he just bought another collection of 80. Carl, can I just buy like 4? That'll last me at my current rate of crankbait fishing probably 20 years. So,
yeah, Carl, can you sponsor the show so that we can have a pre-Rapala wiggle wart deal?
Alec, combo eelgrass die off of fall foliage in late October, and then last about an hour before I'm ready to drive the boat off the dam. Yeah, no, I feel that. That's accurate. So many, yeah, just that's like What's even worse is when the fall turnover, like the turnover in the lake happens at the same damn time that like all that foliage is on top. So like you literally have no chance of getting anything clean through.
Yeah.
Although generally when I pull up to a lake that it's got turnover, I'm like, well, may as well go home.
That's it. Well, we skunked.
we did that for one of the Berkshire Fall Classic one year. I think it was the first year we did it. We all showed up to the lake, and it was full blown turnover, and it was just atrocious.
Sucks.
We had Andrew skunked. I had 4 like rats, like all of them were 12.5 inches.
Ugh.
And then the last like 15 minutes of the day, mind you, the wind was howling. There's a couple of guys almost sank their boats. A bunch of guys ended up with dead batteries by the end of the day. And I had almost nothing left in my trolling motor by the end of this. And in the last like maybe 20 minutes, I caught a 4 1/4 smallie and ended up putting us in 11th out of, I forget, like 23, 24 boats. But it was like, that 1 4 was bigger than the other 4 I had combined.
I mean,
it
that-
was
that- but
brutal.
that's
It was
like
brutal.
that's not you. Like that's just the condition. Like there
Well-
are some days where it's like it's just really bad today. Like
It was for us because we were fishing and then turns out shallow diving cranks and jerk baits was the ticket because Keith and his buddy, and I can't remember for the life of me who he was fishing with, they had 28.5 on their 5.
no.
Oh yeah, they sacked him up. And he said they dropped a couple that would have pushed him over 30.
This is at the place.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, Jody did the same damn thing solo last year. He had just shy of 29.
Jeez.
Yeah, I don't know what he was doing, but
I gotta
the
fish
same
that
weight.
place more. I can't like
I think I'm going there Sunday.
I can't gear myself up to drive like 7 hours in one day.
It's because you're weak.
I know. I know. I accept it. I'm weak.
I accept.
I don't deny it.
I'm pretty sure I'm going up there Sunday.
Who's we?
I guiding.
Oh.
We were supposed to go and do something entirely different. Where I caught those 2 giant smallies.
Yeah.
I was gonna take him there because he really wants to get out a big smallie, and that might still play.
Get on one there.
But then then there's a couple other spots not too far away. One of them went to earlier this year. They did something to it. I asked a friend who's up there often. I'm trying to be extremely vague, and he was like, "Yeah, it's effed." So that kind of limits what happens. And the last time I went to the other place, like it was awful. So I'm like, ugh, if that one spot doesn't pan out, I'm not confident in the 2 backup spots. So I'm like, but he was like, oh, by the way, I'm here and it's firing. I'm like, okay, we'll just go there.
Yeah.
I'll make that drive. 10 out of 10.
That's
Even
fair.
on it, like, I mean, you've experienced it at its worst, and that was brutal.
I've seen
But
that at
was,
its worst.
That was in December.
I
so.
stayed there. I stayed on the lake for like 5 days a couple of years ago, and it's like very inconsistent. It would be like one day we'd go out and like fish all day and we caught like 8 fish, and
Yeah.
then the next day we'd go out and catch 35.
Yeah.
And then the next day we'd catch 6, and
I
then the next day
forgot you
we'd
were up
catch
there for
40.
that.
Yeah, I caught a ton of 5s, and I caught one that was like 6.5, and like they're in there.
Oh yeah.
A couple really big pike too.
Oh, you know what? It's funny. I've only seen 2 pike in all the times I've been up there.
Maybe.
But the first one I saw,
giant. Yeah.
giant. And then the other one was Andrews the last time we went up there fishing. And oh my God, dude, it was built like a muskie. Because, you know, pike, when they get bigger, they don't get that much rounder.
They get wide.
Dude, this thing was round.
Yeah.
Like, I swear to Christ, it could have been a freaking muskie that built on this thing. It was
It
dumb.
was.
I sincerely doubt it was, but oh my God, it was insane. What the hell? Stream, what are you doing?
Yeah, what's happening?
It's just something when I smashed the keyboard earlier. So
Did we miss anything major here?
No, I don't think so. I went through and looked. I didn't see anything pinned. We got everything. Yes, Jody being very vague. You're welcome for that. Carl, what's crazy about pre-wrap warts is as wide as they wobble when they're cold, they still get bit hard.
Something about 'em. I don't know what it is. Something about them.
I like it.
Put a suspend dot on one of those too, and magic.
Yeah. Erie this weekend. Oh,
That's cool.
so we talked about going to the St. Lawrence next year
Mhm.
for the last week of the like early season opener.
I still want to.
So that's the plan. It's going to happen. There is a part of me that wants to drive over to Lake Erie for a day. Problem is, if we are strategic in where we choose to stay
Mhm.
and we pick something down in, say, like Shumo Bay,
Mhm.
then you're half an hour from where we need to launch every day to get into the Canadian side. So it's a short run into Canadian waters.
Not bad.
But then that puts us 3 hours from the Buffalo Harbor for Lake Erie.
That's still pretty far.
Yeah, but I'll be doing the driving. All you're going to do is be past your princess.
It's so crazy how 3 hours to you is like,
It's not
yeah,
that
easy. Yeah, no
I've done
problem.
it so much, dude. It really is like, my wife wanted to, I can't remember where the hell we were going. It was like an hour, 45-minute drive. She's like, it's a long day. You okay? I'm like, I literally drive 3.5 hours to Champlain, fish for 12 and turn around and drive home. And I'm still at work early the next day.
Ugh.
An hour and 45 is nothing. and I get to sleep in before that. It was like, this is great.
You're a crazy person.
I'll drive 5 hours on a day I sleep in. I don't care. But I was thinking about that. I was like, we could totally go do a day or two on Erie as well. And it's fun.
I don't hate it. Like stay there.
No, day trip.
Oh, you're the worst.
Just one day. Be fine.
I hate you so much.
No, you're gonna like it. It's gonna be good. I got the spots. It's gonna be great. I don't with this wait till you're 40 crap. Okay, here's my rationale is as long as I don't stop doing it, my body and mind are gonna be used to it, and I'll just keep on going. I got my dad as an example of that, who is 64 now and still works like he's 20, and because he's never stopped working like that, and it's just like weightlifting, right? You know, as long as you just keep at it, you maintain that muscle mass, you maintain that cardio strength, and the whole 9 yards. So it's mind and body and ass in the seat time. It's all relative.
What is SLR?
St. Lawrence River.
St. Lawrence River.
Nice. Yeah, Dan. I would have loved to have made it up there, but I got the high school state championship tournament this weekend. So once I took on the coaching gig, I was like, that wipes out the potential of that, because I can't potentially plan on it, assuming that the kids would not make it. Like that would just be wrong on my part. But hopefully you guys smash them there. I heard it's starting to get really good again. So there you go. If anybody's interested, Ben's Tackle Shack going up there this weekend. Still got rooms open, I believe, at the Alexandria Hotel. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. $50 a night. It's a hell of a deal.
So cheap.
So cheap.
That's awesome.
Group rate, man. Wow, hiccup. So, okay. That is enough. I have to go help my children with homework. I say children, my oldest. He's got one question he needs help with. Math. I'm going back to doing 7th grade math. And like, I'm like, what? broke my brain last night. I had to pull out the notepad and like figure it out. I'm like, oh, right. Yep. Okay. I remember this now. Yep. Okay. This is how you do it. And like, then I had to try and figure out a way to explain it in a way that he would understand.
It's going to take me 45 minutes to get these back in here.
Well, it'd take me half an hour to tear this all down. But no, this is great. I hope we were thorough in everything that we talked about tonight for both Squarebills and shallow water cranking, and gave enough examples for not only how to tackle the current conditions, but also the upcoming conditions over the next few weeks. I think, Dennis, bravo, sir. You did a phenomenal job carrying the show tonight. Appreciate you. Next week, we'll try and pick a topic that we can both contribute to equally. So I'm not just talking about random things and having Jody pick on me for only catching, 2 fish a year on a specific technique.
We should do the it might be too early because we're still going to do a lot of fishing this year, but I like that whoever sent the idea of like 5 best baits that we had throughout the year.
I want to do that, but I want to wait until like November for that. I want to wait till
year's not done yet.
Yeah. No, we're like, are you kidding me? We're just getting into the prime time.
Yeah.
So that's another phenomenal topic. Again, at any point, if you have an idea for a topic that you'd love for us to cover, I don't care how you message me, whether it's on Facebook through Messenger or on Instagram or on YouTube, on any one of the videos in the comment. I literally check them almost every day. I check them at worst every 2 days. But at any time you want us to cover something, please let us know. We have a couple of other ideas we can kick around. Jody, we were talking about A-rigs. He put a comment on one of the videos talking about A-rigs. And I was like, well, if we're going to do that, you got to come on. And he said, I would love to. It's like,
that'd be cool.
That could be a lot of fun just talking about A-rigs.
Yeah. I don't have really any experience using them except for stripers. So that's going to be the two of you, and I'll just be in the back drinking.
So before we do that episode, I need to make a call to the state of New Hampshire to get clarification, because per the letter of the law, you can throw a 2-hooked A-rig in New Hampshire.
Yeah, because aren't they weird about it and say
they used to be? All that old when the A-rig like took the world by storm. What was it, 10 years ago? New Hampshire specifically addressed it with like this own post on their website stating that the Alabama rig was illegal because they defined it as an apparatus.
Yep.
And they had a web page dedicated just to the Alabama rig. That is gone. Any and all references to that is
really?
gone. And the only thing you can find there is the law that's been there forever that says you can have at most up to 2 hooks in use at a time.
Which is what Vermont has, right? But Vermont
Specifically states for an A rig, you're allowed to use 2 reel hooks, and the rest have to be dummies. So by the letter of the law in New Hampshire, an A rig with only 2 hooks on it is legal. Like to the T for what the law says. Now, it would be smart on my part to double check that with an actual fish and game officer, and I intend to do that. So before we have a show like that, that's what I'll do.
I like that idea.
Seacoast Angler should make an episode of finesse fishing for smallmouth and fall. Now, I know we've covered that in the past, but not with you. So that is something that would be good to bring up, especially given the amount of finesse fishing I've been doing the last couple weeks and will be doing for the next couple of weeks. That could be good.
I'm down with that.
Maybe that'll be the next week.
Wait until you hear all my expensive rods when we talk about that.
I'd be really excited to talk about that because I went pretty hard on the finesse setups this year, and I am beyond happy with my setups right now. Like I love all my finesse setups right now.
Yeah, that is one of those things where it's like the more money you spend, the better you'll do. Like it's as simple as that.
Oh
like,
yeah,
the more money you spend, the better rod you'll get, the more sensitivity you'll have, the more fish you'll catch.
There's still one rod that I kind of want to buy from Douglas. It's a 7'10" medium extra fast. And it's got a full carbon fiber grip.
Ah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Monocoque? Like
what?
Like they make like these monocoque things now that are like it's like hollow, but it's like what the whole handle's like one piece.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Essentially that.
Yeah.
And detachable. And Oliver and I had one when I was fishing with him up on on Champlain last year, and he was using it for topwater, and he let me use it a little bit, and I was like, dude, that can actually make like a really killer, like you would throw your fuzzy dice weightless. I honest to God think that rod would sling it. Like just the way it loads up and everything, I think that would kill it. Throwing hair jigs, and then you got a 7'10" rod, like you throw in wicked light line, and it the whole thing folds. But it's quick on the pull up, and then it just really bends over.
That's cool.
So I was thinking about it, I was like, that could be a really, really good hair jig rod.
I don't know that we've ever really talked about hair jigs.
No, because Andrew and I have never fished them. I mean, rarely have I fished them.
I have fished hair jigs a lot.
Hair jig topic would be another good one to bring up.
I mean, we'll talk about it if we talk about finesse fishing for smallmouth in the fall.
That's true. So we'll bring it up. But yeah, Jody, we signed you up for an A-Rig episode, so you're welcome. And thank you. Yeah, that'll do it. So thank you, everybody. Greatly appreciate you, sir. You have the floor to do the sign-off.
Oh, God.
You can do it. I believe in you.
We'll be back at 8 p.m. every Wednesday at youtube.com/@ReelNorthernBass.
Bravo, sir. Nailed it. Championship belt. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.